The bones of the house were very good. The renovation took a little while in terms of the landscaping and getting that together. The rooms structurally were pretty good, but we had to change some of the flow of the house, change some of the rooms, renovate the kitchens and the bathrooms. So it was a big undertaking. Hi, I'm Troy.
And I'm Frank.
And this is our renovation story from New Orleans, Louisiana. I lived in New Orleans for 30 years, and I always loved the architecture here in New Orleans, and I love the fact that you can live in homes that are very, very old.
A little bit about the house. It's the 1870 Center Hall cottage. There's been a few families that have owned it over the years. It's located in the Garden District here in New Orleans.
A raised Center Hall cottage, at least in New Orleans, is a home that has a central hallway, and then all of the rooms come off of the central hallway. And initially, when this happened, it was a way to keep the home cool.
We're in the front parlor of the home. We do enjoy this space from time to time in the evening with a cocktail and maybe sometimes with a couple of friends. It is a cozy space in here. And this is a local artist, Carolyn Evans.
When we bought the house, I always envisioned that this painting, which I owned when we got the house, would go here. And so this room really started as a designing around the painting. This house was originally built by a man called Osborne. He actually built the house for himself and his widowed sister at the time.
Great community, great sense of neighborhood and pride in the community. I think most people in the community have the same kind of sense of we're just here to take care of the property, to pass it along to whoever comes, behind us. For a living, I own a mattress store over on Tchoupitoulas. And Troy is a radiation oncologist, so our work really doesn't show up here unless you're going to sleep. This is a very New Orleans piece. It's seen a lot throughout the house and throughout New Orleans in different shops. It's by Hunt Slonim. He does a series of bunnies and parakeets and different things. And so as we go throughout the house, you'll see several pieces of his work.
I think the big design choices to kind of make the flow better was opening up really the doorways and the entrances to the room. So all of the doorways were small, and to make the flow better, we ended up opening these doorways to really match.
So now we're in the other front parlor of the home. This particular room lends itself again for entertaining. People go from space to space. This is one of my favorite pieces in the home. This is a local artist, David Harouni, and this was an early piece of his work. And Troy tells the story that he bought it wet. It was not quite dry when it come to be. David has a gallery down on Royal Street, and we do enjoy seeing his work.
New Orleans is a very special place in that you can make a living being an artist here in New Orleans. But to make a living, you have to patronize that artist. And so after I moved to New Orleans, I really started to patronize the arts and artists and really appreciate the artists in the area.
So with the scale of the house and the ceilings being so tall, we typically use a lot of art placement, the mirrors that are more vertical over the fireplaces to kind of draw your eye up, and then of course the chandeliers throughout the house all kind of tell the same story but in different lights, so to speak. They all flow very well to kind of draw your eye up, so you'll notice the moldings and the ceiling medallions and things throughout the house. So both of the front parlors have fireplaces. The fireplaces do not function. They're just for looks. This particular room, we added a traditional fireplace mantle that you would expect to see in a home of this scale from this time period. And on the wall here, Cordelia Calkins, the grand niece of Mr. Osborne, who built this home, has her signature here dated from July of 1870. That was one of the preservation pieces that's kind of lasted throughout the years, that no one took it down or painted over it. We suspect it's there because there was some debt that she signed off on when the history was done on the house. That's what they kind of concluded that would have been from.
The coffee table in this room is actually an old antique iron gate that was actually from France, and I bought this at an antique store in Baton Rouge.
For people who don't, know, a lot of this same style of ironwork and look can be seen throughout New Orleans and the French Quarter, showcased on balconies and gates, as this was once purposed for, throughout the city, but more traditionally in the French Quarter.
The rooms that we entertain in are basically all the same color. They're painted what's called jute by Benjamin Moore. And then the center hall is another color called pashmina. And so that just goes throughout. I think walking in the rooms, from room to room to room, you just always feel comfortable and feel like it just flows.
So now we're coming into the dining room. Behind me is a local artist and friend of ours, Vida Shell. This is one of our latest pieces we've purchased and had framed. And it's just kind of floating, and Troy and I both love this piece. It appeals to us in many ways. You've got a young man who is posed just like owning the day, and behind him is a great deal of history in these advertisements, from the antique cars and just people at a dinner party or cocktail party. So it's, again, one of those pieces that really spoke to both of us.
So in the dining room, because of the size of the room and also because of the height of the ceiling, I wanted to use a wallpaper that had a big print to it. So this is Pharaoh and Ball. This is Lotus. The great thing about this, though, is we talked before about color and keeping the color the same. And the base color for this is pretty close to the color that we used in the front parlors. The sconce itself is, again, from Julie Neal Designs, and so that goes along with the chandelier.
Our sense of style and design is very traditional, it's very classic, so it worked well with the architecture of the home. I think that everything we did, just took what was there and tried to make the most use out of it and make it better. You're not going to walk into a bright red room or anything like that that's just going to catch you off guard in the house. Everything is pretty neutral, pretty flow.
So for the kitchen, we actually changed the configuration of the kitchen. So originally there was a doorway over in this corner that led from the kitchen to what they were using as a dining room, which is one of the front parlors now. So we moved that doorway to the center hall and then designed the kitchen basically around this kitchen table. So I knew I wanted a true kitchen table, and so we ended up designing the cabinets around the kitchen table.
So the backsplash is Tabarca tile. It is handmade tiles.
The countertop is Calcutta gold. And we wanted to use a marble countertop. I like marble countertops. I know that they can stain and they can show wear, but that's actually what I wanted because it's an old house. So built in 1870, and so I like having the imperfections on the countertop as opposed to a nice shiny granite countertop. That's great, but in an old home, I think this fits a little bit better.
So this is likely Troy's favorite piece of furniture in the house, the kitchen table. This table gets lots of use. We have dinner at this table almost 3 or 4 times a week at least.
When I designed the kitchen, we went through different plans where we had a bar or we had something in the kitchen. And I finally just settled on, nope, I want a kitchen table in the center of the kitchen so you can sit and talk while I'm cooking. And we have dinners that go late into the evening just because everybody's comfortable in sitting around the kitchen table.
So this is actually a friend of ours, photography, El Casimo Harris, and this is part of his Vanishing Black Bar series that's about the vanishing black bars here in New Orleans that used to be very prominent and very neighborhood specific. And you know, this particular piece drew us to it for several reasons. One, when we're having people over for dinner, I set this kind of dry sink up as a bar for cocktails or wine to stay out of the way of the chef. But I thought it was very fitting to have this over what I use as a bar. So we love this series of work and we love this piece, and it's a very, very New Orleans scene depicted in the photograph. My favorite room in the house is going to be the den off of the kitchen. We spend a lot of time in there, and there's different seasons throughout the year where if you've got a fire going in the fireplace, because it is a working fireplace in that room, or if you're just sitting there having your coffee or cocktails with friends, you know, when the weather's not permissive to be outside, that's where we tend to find ourselves. We don't think that this room was originally part of what was enclosed of the home. It is the only room in the house that does not have the original pine floors beneath the sisal. Over here, this is a neighbor now and friend of ours, Damon Matsui, did this piece, and he actually lives in the neighborhood. We have a lot of people's work that we support and that we've acquired and that we love. But this room has a lot of color, it has a lot of warmth, it has a lot of brightness, and I think that's what kind of draws me back here. It's where we have our morning coffee and sometimes afternoon cocktails, you know, so it's and friends tend to end up here on the sofa. After the kitchen table, we move in here. I love this house. I mean, it's a lot of work. Old wood house in New Orleans, there's always something to do, but this is a perfect house for two people. It doesn't, even though it's a large home, it doesn't feel like you're lost in it, like someone's in another part of the house and you don't know that they're there. You know, it's very warm and it has a cozy feel to be such a large home.
Now we're in the backyard. And actually, when we bought the house, the porch was here, so this back porch was a big selling point to me. The pool was here, the hardscape was here, but what we had to do was change all of the greenery, so the trees are all new, the bamboo is new. Initially, there was a formal rose garden in the back. We took out that formal rose garden and made it more of an open space so we can dine in the back. Our friend Luis Rivera, who's a landscape architect, helped us with the design here in the backyard. And now we use this space a lot for entertaining. I've always had a big interest in design and furniture placement, and so in all the spaces that I've had a big hand in kind of designing how it flows and then the furniture which goes into it.
I particularly like color in the fabric and textiles. Our styles both flow very well together. I think we have very similar and comparable taste. So it's been really easy when we've changed things or updated a room, you know, that we've agreed upon what went into that space and what the finished product was going to look like. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to HGTV Handmade for more before and after videos like this.